Guys, ready for this one? This is a big one today. Can you hear me? All right. You know what OBV is? Ooh, that's pretty good. How did I get into this one? I got into this one because I had a 97-year-old patient of mine ask me why I didn't admit her. She fell in the shower, struck her head on the water faucet. She broke the superior orbit of her eye, and she was made observation. Is everybody with me? So we're going to talk about this today. Now, I always have to start off by saying America, specifically Pittsburgh, has the best health care in the world. Is everybody with me? So all I'm about to tell you is personal experience, and it may go against some of the things you may understand and think or so. This is personal experience for me of what I observed and what this means and what it's all about. Short answer? It's remarkable, guys. I've put up with a lot of things. Let me think of the year. I think it was 1998. I had the largest practice at Suburban General Hospital. And I would walk into the floor, and the nurse would grab my charts, and we would sit and go over them all, face to face, and talk about every patient, face to face, every day. And I walked on the floor, and my charts weren't there. I had probably 16 charts. And I said, hey, who has my charts? And they said, the case manager. Now, once again, I didn't even know what the term was. This was all new. And that's when I found out I was a PCP. I wasn't a doctor anymore. I was a primary care physician, okay? And so I've lived this stuff. It goes way back to 1983. I was at Greater Baltimore Medical Center, which was an affiliate of Hopkins, and I went down on June the 30th to admit a patient with pneumonia. Saw the patient, saw the x-ray, wrote the orders, went to bed. On July the 2nd, same case, I did the same thing, and I got a call from the nurse. And she said, Dr. Coppola, you have to do a gram stain on the sputum now. So I said a few things and hung up. And then my program director called me and told me if I didn't get my blankety blank down there, that I would be fired. And that's a true statement, guys, okay? So I was threatened with my job if I don't do a gram stain. Anybody know what a gram stain is? A gram stain is where you put reagents on what you're looking at to see what color they come out. And if they're gram positive or gram negative, it determines the antibiotic we use. Is everybody following me? So in June of 83, I didn't have to do it. In July of 83, I did, and it was for the purpose of what's called DRGs. Anybody ever heard that term? Diagnostic Related Guidelines. Okay, now follow me, guys. We're talking 1980, 40 years ago. This was all set up. Does everybody follow me? 40 years ago. Do you know what your benefits were? I could tell you because I was a doctor back then. I'm old. Okay? What happened was the patients would come into the hospital, go through the emergency room, get admitted, and if they weren't able to go home, they went to a facility till they were able to go home. And Medicare paid for 120 days. Did you hear me? That's 4 months. Does everybody follow me? And ever since then, you and I have been paying into Medicare. But guess what? Back then, there wasn't a case manager. There weren't any committees. There weren't any computers. There wasn't all this data that everybody's analyzing now. Does everybody understand the situation? Okay, so we're in 1983. I'm practicing medicine as a resident, and I'm seeing something that doesn't make sense to me. I had not done a gram stain since medical school, and now all of a sudden they're making us do gram stains to start the antibiotic in the emergency room. You know what it was for? And it was the start. I always steal these pens, guys. Make sure I hand it back. Of LOS. You know what that is? Length of stay. Okay, you guys hearing these terms? All right? They didn't tell us that. In 1983, when I had to do this, no one sat me down and said, oh, Dr. Coppola, we're analyzing data, and it's come to our attention that we can reduce the length of stay by a day and a half if we give the antibiotic in the emergency room to the patient. Does it have better outcomes for the patient? No, not at all. Not any data that shows that. But they can get them out of the hospital quicker so they save money. Does everybody understand this? And so I I discussed it. And so I heard from my program director the next morning as well. So he called me the night and threatened me, and then the next morning he said, hey, yep, whose name's on that paycheck? And it was the administrator, right? And he said, it's not my name. I can't protect you, kid. You're going against them, you're not going to be here next year. So everybody follow me. This is 1983, because as an intelligent person with common sense, I'm not understanding what we're doing. And they didn't tell us it was to save money. What they tell you, it's all the same line. To take care of the patient. To improve patient quality of care. Does everybody follow me? They have their mantra that they use. So again, in 1983, I saw the DRG up front and close. The LOS didn't come till 2010, which is known as Obamacare. It's the Affordable Care Act. We'll call it ACA. Does everybody follow me? 40 years ago, this was designed. For what purpose? To be where we are today, which is observation versus admission. Well, I got yelled at, and it's so sad. This lady, I have to laugh. She came into my office, and she says, you know, doctor, you promote water all the time, but you don't have any water in your office for me. So I bought one of those things that, you know, like the water cooler. And so when she came in, she usually came every 3 months. She came in, and I said, where's she at? She's standing at the cooler, drinking water, okay? And then she came back in, and she said, finally, you finally got what you've been preaching for all these years. My point is, wonderful lady, at 90-some years old, she was very independent, and she walked everywhere in Bellevue, and she would have still been there today. Because of what happened to her, she didn't get skilled benefits. So she wasn't able to go to the nursing home because she wasn't in 2 midnights. We're going to talk about that. So she had to go to Ohio with her daughter. She died 6 months later. And I see it, guys. I watch it. Everybody's a person. Everybody has their space. When you get taken out of your space, you change. What should have happened to this patient? This patient should have stayed in the hospital till there was healing, and then she had to go to what they call an inpatient rehab. That's what she should have had. And I still think she'd be in Bellevue, probably still giving me a hard time. And that's the sadness I feel, and that's why I wanted you guys to understand this so that you have the ability to maneuver through this system. because it's all dollars, guys. All right, this is interesting. For those of you that aren't sports enthusiasts, I'll still get your attention with this. Two things I have to show you. The first one, who watched the Super Bowl? Okay? I don't bet because my wife won't let me, but if I would have, I'd have been a rich man. Okay? Philadelphia fired Andy Reid. He took them to 7 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl, and they fired him. And everybody said they were going to lose, except me. He is a disciple of Bill Parcells. So is Bill Belichick. You follow me? What he did at the end of the game is classic Parcells. He ran backwards. They got to the 3-yard line. There was only 1:50 left. He ran backwards to run the clock out and win the game. You follow me? Okay? Why do I bring this up? Another thing. The end of the game was pretty good, too, how they used Juju Smith. I had a friend, Dana. You guys know Dana, my nurse? She made money off it. I said, Juju Smith is going to be the star of the game. And she called me at halftime. She goes, he has 3 catches. I said, he's going to be the star. Reed purposely didn't use him till the last series. Threw the ball 4 times to him. What did that make them do? Go man-to-man. What happens when you're man-to-man? Your head's looking at the quarterback. When you're in zone, you're watching the quarterback's eyes. What happened? Mahomes ran right down the middle of the field because no one was looking at him. Andy Reid. And I knew it would happen. Here we are right now. Who's the best center fielder for the Pirates right now? You guys don't know who it is? He wants to be traded. Any hint? You guys don't watch baseball at all. Well, I'll still use this analogy. We won't even say his name. Reynolds. Okay? All right. He wants money. So what do they have on him? Matrix. It's the same thing they had on Reed. Matrix. What is that? Statistical analysis of the person's athletic ability. Statistical analysis of the coach's abilities. Everybody follow me? Everybody in this room has a matrix. Okay? If you're my patient, you don't unless you see another doctor because I'm not computerized. I'm proud to say I'm still a flip-top phone kind of guy. All right? So where we are is because the world's computerized, every piece of data is kept, monitored, and statistically analyzed, plus artificial intelligence is applied to it, and all those things come up with a number. Philadelphia felt, and maybe rightfully so, they won a Super Bowl 3 years after he left. So maybe the matrix is okay. Okay? Similarly now, Reynolds' matrix has him at a certain dollar amount. So the Pirates are only going to pay that amount. So everybody follow what I'm telling you. The matrix, the statistic analysis from all the computer data. ER. What to know about an emergency room. What's it say? Neighborhood ER. Okay. You would not think in today's day and age that I would have to tell you this. If you see ER, what does that mean to you? If you see neighborhood ER, what does that mean to you? It's an ER in the emergency room, right? Pretends a red light's going. Don't you dare go to a neighborhood emergency room. If you scrape your knee, you need some stitches, it's an urgent center. Everybody follow me? And why do I bring this up? I have a patient and personal friend. His wife calls. Dr. Coppola. We'll call him Joe. Joe's acting funny, he's drooling, and he can't lift up his right arm. I said, get him to the emergency room, ASAP. Take him to AGH. Okay, that's what I said to her. Okay? They live by Passivant Hospital. As they went out onto McKnight Road, they saw a building saying AHN Neighborhood ER, and they went. So everybody follow me. They did a CAT scan on his brain, determined he was probably having a stroke. They had no MRI. Well, David didn't call me for 5 hours, right? What do you do if you have those symptoms? You get to the emergency room immediately. He doesn't call me. What occurs? His wife thinks it's a good idea to get him there. He passed up the window of TPA to bust the clot up. So everybody follow me what I'm telling you. No one's telling you what's really going on, guys. Stay away from a neighborhood emergency room. It does not provide a service that you need. It's an urgent care. That's what it is. You go to the hospital and make sure you know your insurance. Even though they say if you're having an emergency, they'll pay no matter what. So even if your insurance doesn't pay, if it's an emergency room, say you're AHN and you're driving by St. Margaret's. If you think you're having a stroke, you can go in there. All right, because everybody understands. Please pay attention to that. All right, once you get to a real ER, not this one, you're going to have an evaluation done. What do you need to know? The criteria. The test, the results, and a second opinion. Why do I tell you this? I have to laugh. This was a good one. I was an intern at McKeesport Hospital in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. And the second week I was on call, a nurse called me in the middle of the night, and when I was writing orders, my resident came in, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, she called me." He goes like this. I said, "What?" He said, "I'll take care of it." He said, "We'll tell you at lunch." Okay? So at lunchtime, he says, if a nurse ever calls you after 1:30 in the morning and it's not in your mind an absolute emergency, you write 5 pages of orders, and she will never call you again in the morning. Is everybody with me? This is what you have to know. When they tell you you're being made observation, they have to tell you. If they don't, you ask them. And if they say, "Oh, Mrs. Jones, we're going to observe you because your doctor," that's the other thing. They tell you it's the doctor. Doctor has nothing to do with this, guys. This is all the insurance company. And they will say CHF, they will say asthma, and they will say chest pain, because those are the 3 most expensive. And they will say to you, your doctor wants you observed to see if this fits the criteria of an admission. Is everybody with me? Are we all common sense people? Of course, chest pain, CHF, and asthma is a problem that the person needs admitted. But are we making that decision? No, we are not. Who makes that decision? Wait till you hear this. The recovery auditor, the recovery auditor contractor. It's an accountant. That's who makes the decision, guys. Is everybody with me? Look it up. That's what it is. Recovery auditor contractor of CMS makes the decision. It's all computerized, and it's all, watch what you say. Watch what you say when you're in the emergency. You shouldn't have to do this, guys, but I'm telling you how to get through this, because otherwise you're going to get beat up and you're going to get bills. But what happens is you go into the emergency room. Let's pick one. What's one of them? Oh, here's one. This was what the data came from. Anybody ever heard the word syncope? It's when you lose consciousness. Do we all think we should be admitted if we have a syncopal event? Yes. Is that common sense? Yes. That's the #1 observation in America today. Because again, these auditors who are accountants look at the data. Syncope cost the most money to Medicare in 2014. Is everybody with me? Instead of them looking at it that, well, what's the medical health problem that's causing that? They're looking at that's costed too much money. So what are we going to do with them? We're going to observe them, and we're going to put together criteria. And if while they're in that observation mode, they don't have any of these criteria that are a negative sign, then they go home and see their PCP. Does everybody follow me? You guys have to understand this piece to get to the next one, because I'll show you where the money comes from. All right, so criteria, and we're going to use the syncope. And I'll give you one you'll never forget. My old partner, Dr. Potter Sr., he had everything. This guy was an amazing person. He had everything. But he always bought little gadgets, okay? So at our office, we have cathedral ceilings, and it had lights that had a bulb like this, okay? And we used to have to take a ladder to go up and get it. So this one day, he walks in all excited. He was shopping, and I see, looks like a broom handle, like a broomstick handle. And he comes walking in. He's all excited. He's putting it all together. It looked like a big dart, and it had a string on it. So you'd spit on it, hit the bulb, unscrew it, take it out, or put it in and pull the cord, right? So he's all excited to do it. I'm in the office. He leaves, and all of a sudden I hear bang. And I go out. He's laying on the floor. I said, what's up? I don't know. I must have tripped. I said, all right, be careful. I go back in. Bang. He's on the floor again. And I was like, what the? Something's up, buddy. Yeah, you got to go get this checked out. That's syncope. He could not remember what happened. Does everybody follow me? So I called an ambulance, sent him to the hospital, and he was in the hospital for 2.5 days. And if he wasn't a doctor, he'd have probably been there 5 days. This was 1990, okay? Point being, if you lose consciousness, it's serious, and you need to know the reason. His turned out to be what's called VBS, vertebral basilar syndrome. The artery back here, he had arthritis in his neck, so when he was looking up, he passed out from looking up. But still, we had to check the carotids, his heart, and everything else, and that's why it took the 2.5 days. Everybody follow what I'm telling you, that the criteria are not physicians. What the nurse will tell you in the emergency room is your doctor said to be observed. That's why my patient got so mad at me, because she believed what they told her. I said, no one talked to me at all. That decision was made in the emergency room. Okay, so everybody follows me. The criteria is determined, and syncope is an observation even though you lose consciousness. I'm going to put LOC, loss of consciousness. Okay? What evaluation was done, and what were the test results? When they tell you you're being observed, you challenge what they know. Because I'm telling you right now, most emergency rooms are very busy. And to get out of this, again, what they do is they keep you in the emergency room for one of those observation nights. It's all for dollars, guys. It's all to save money. So what you do when they come and say, oh, Mrs. Jones, we're observing you, you say, okay, what criteria did you use? Okay? The one you want to know, pretty simple. Remember, medicine's simple. Interqual. That's the standard. So when they say, what do you mean, ma'am? You say, did you use interqual? And you'll get her attention or his attention. Okay? And then you want to know what tests were done and what the results were. So now they're going to tell you they used interqual and the results of your CAT scan, because remember, this is syncope, your CAT scan, your carotid, your echo, your EKG, and your blood work. You want her to tell you that. And the reason I'm giving you this is because the three they put are the chest pain, the CHF, and the asthma. We're adding the syncope because this is the one that the data has all the information statistically. This is the one that costs so much money. That's why they make you an observation to save some money. But you yourself, you need to have this information so that if someone's telling you they're making you observation and you ask them, first off, they're not going to be able to give you the information because everybody's too busy in the emergency room now. Good old days, the nurse would have known. They're not going to know now. So you're going to upset her because she's got to go out, get all the information, and then bring it into you and say, okay, this test was this test was this test was this test was that. And then you say, okay. And then you say, I have one more question. Yes. May I have a second opinion? That's all you're asking. You're allowed to have a second opinion. And why is that? That you want two doctors to come look at the criteria they use from Interqual as to whether or not to admit you based on the tests that were done and the results of those tests. Because what I know and what I can share with you is your knowledge of that is going to catch their attention. And when they say to you, I'm sorry, ma'am, we're busy in the emergency room now. There's some real sick patients here, so we're not going to be able to get you that second opinion. You say, oh, okay, that's okay. Could you please call my Medicare representative? The phone number's on the back of my insurance card. Right now, I can promise you, 95% of you will be admitted. Is everybody with me? Because they don't know you have any idea what I just told you. Because none of us do. That's the way the game's played. And unfortunately, if the doc is owned, that doc doesn't know either. Does everybody follow what I'm telling you? You have to know and understand this. All right. How did we get to this? You have to, again, remember what I told you at the beginning. You're still in the best place for healthcare. How did we get here? Remember that big picture of the money? Okay. 2004, 1994, 2010, both Democrat and Republican, so it's bipartisan scam. And I don't know for a fact, I don't understand Washington, even though I saw parts of it. My son just got married there on the 30th of July, or on December rather. Whew, expensive, I can tell you that, okay? Bottom line though is, what we have, Clinton, Part C. Prior to Clinton, there was Part A and B only of Medicare. And that provided hospital, extended care, doctor, durable medical equipment, and hospice. Is everybody with me? And again, guys, in 1994, it was that simple. I was practicing back then. That's how healthcare is very, 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 very. How many times can I say very so you guys will see? It's very simple, guys. It really is. It's ridiculous. And I've done the research for years. In the 80s, there was a surplus of money in Medicare. Did you hear me? A surplus. In the 80s, what happened? 1983, they did away with non-profit hospitals. What happened? Every hospital was allowed to make a profit. So what happened? Healthcare became a big business. This one statistic is going to stagger you. The money spent on advertising since that legislation in 1983 could insure the world twice. Is everybody with me? If you think back, pre-1983, there were no commercials on television for healthcare at all. Why? Because it was a non-profit system. 98% of hospitals in America were non-profit. And guess what? Doctors ran them. And there could be bad things said about people anywhere, guys. But overall, I've practiced that long. I trained since the 80s. I've seen the difference. Remember what I told you? When I used to walk on the floor, if I had 16 patients, the nurse brought all 16 patients, and we would look and talk each other face to face about every single patient and how they were doing before they left. And we would decide, oh, geez, she's no better. Well, We got to keep her. Or you know what, let's send her over to Vincentian. Or let's send her over to one of these other places till she gets stronger. Does everybody follow what I'm telling you? All right. So now, what happens when Part C comes along in 1994? You take the money from A plus the money from B plus, and look at this, guys, this is real, look it up. A 10% profit is built in. Wouldn't you like to own that business? Did any of us know that? You didn't know it now. Did any of us know that in 94? Of course not. And if you guys remember, Mrs. Clinton back then was going to try to do a standard health care like they had all through Europe at the time. Fortunately, that got nixed. Okay, but everybody sees what I'm talking about. So C now takes the dollars that are spent from the government that we all pay into and adds a 10% profit. And what's this called? Managed care. Remember what I told you guys? I hit the floor in 98. None of us knew anything about it. It would have been really 97. And the case manager had my chart. Please understand, guys. It was, you can't touch my chart. You follow me? Like there was a rack on the floor. You couldn't just walk up and touch a chart. You had to be either my nurse or somebody that I instructed to go, that's my chart, that's my records, that's my information on my patient. You can't touch it. And so when they said the case manager says it, I was like, well, who the hell's the case? What's a case manager? I've never heard that term. Oh, well, she's reviewing your chart. Well, what's she reviewing my chart for? And I had an argument with the lady. And I fought with her, not fought with her, but I talked about, do you realize what you're doing? Yes, I'm managing the. What does that mean? It's all dollars and cents, guys. And again, they had the 10% profit built in. How do you think they offer free eyeglasses, free hearing aid? Now they're doing dental. How do you think they got a 10% profit built in? How are they offering you $1,000 to pay whatever the hell they do say about it? Because they already made the profit, and they're going to go up with your copay without you knowing it. We were all taught, do you get anything in the world free? No. No one's giving you anything, guys. So this hit, what did I see? I saw a change in my profits. This is what blew me away. In case you guys don't know, this is McKnight Road. This is Perrymont. And this is the mall. I had an office here, and I had an office here. This was Dr. Who did I buy that off of? Nicotero. And this was Dr. Potter. I'm still in Bellevue. I got this one through my accountant, and this guy and my father were good friends. That's how I got those practices, okay? Dr. Nicotero's office had everything in it. X-ray labs, hearing services, you name it, anything you needed, okay? So I think it was July also. July 1998. If you were managed care, you could not get an X-ray in my office. Even though you got an X-ray there for 40 years with Dr. Nicotero. You could no longer, in my office, get the X-ray. Well, what does that mean? We used to have the patient come in. I would talk to them. Then I would send them to get X-ray, EKG, blood work, and urinalysis. And then I would examine them and sit down and review it. What's better than that, right? One-stop shop, you go over everything. They don't have to come back. I mean, imagine if you could do that. That's what I was doing in 1998 at that office. And a lot of people. I got 15,000 patients. We saw a lot of people in that office regularly. And that's what they were used to. And I remember saying to myself, my patients aren't going to put up with that. No time at all. They'll be coming back here. They're going to change their insurance. How did they get you? Your job. They convinced your employer to go with the managed care. So you had no choice. So now, First thing I sold on eBay was all my radiology stuff. But everybody gets the point, okay? So what happened? Doctors saw healthcare is changing. Docs aren't calling the shots anymore. So what occurred? Meeting, November, Thanksgiving, church, Northside. I attended. 200 American physician primary care. We were told, get in now or you won't get in. I spent $2,500 that night to get into these systems, and none of it materialized. It was what they call a test. A, see if the doc would pay money to get in, and see how many of the 200 signed up. 91%. You follow me? That's how they do it, guys. In case you didn't know it, when they give you that fancy commercial, do this and you'll get a free trip. They just want to see how many people call in. It's all a way to gather data. That's what they were doing. So what occurred now was I had these offices all set up, and now I had to stop all of my plans and join managed care. Then what happened? Things chugged along to 2004, and Part D came in. Again, this was, C was, what's his face, Clinton, and then Part D was Bush, so it was everybody. And what happened with this? What happened with this now, remember, managed care got a 10% profit. So you guys remember the commercial, the guy singing in the rain and all that kind of stuff for whatever the insurance product was? They were offering you free prescriptions and free this and free that. So Medicare got pushed. No, they didn't. It was them telling you they did, that people were complaining and they all wanted a prescription plan. That was just another way to generate more money, guys. So what happens? Part D comes. So how do you stay out of? Does everybody know what this is? Yay! Now you shouldn't know that, guys. You shouldn't know that. You everybody follow me? What the heck are we doing? Donut holes, 2 midnights. These people that are controlling this don't know what the hell they're doing, guys. It's crazy. But you have to understand this. And he hit the nail on the head. How do you survive the donut hole? Only one way. Generic medication. Okay? Once again, I have a lot of meetings with a lot of docs. Us independent guys stick together. And I remember saying to them, my patients will never go generic. Because they used to complain to me if I didn't write specifically on the prescription pad, because the pharmacies caught on and they would give them generic instead of regular. So they would come in yelling at me, I don't want generic. They're not the same. Give me regular. So when I saw this, it's like, no way. My patients are not going to take generic. 100% of my patients went generic. Why? They hit you, guys. They hit you. All right, so the setup was in. We now have A, B, C, and D. And we have these auditors determining criteria, not doctors, criteria. I can't spell, guys. That's criteria. So what's the one thing that is missing that would stop everything? The one thing that's missing that could change it in a heartbeat. I'm the only one allowed to practice medicine. All these healthcare systems, they can't practice medicine. These, I don't want to call them bean counters, they're accountants, but I still call them bean counters. They're controlling our healthcare today. They can't practice medicine. So how did they do this? They bought the doctors. Does everybody follow me? Okay? Does everybody understand what I'm telling you? If the doctors don't sell to these systems, the systems don't exist. But they set it up in a way that they trap the physicians. What does that mean? I have friends that are surgeons that didn't want to join. All of a sudden, they bumped their OR time. What does that mean? Oh, Mrs. Jones, we're going to do your gallbladder on February 18th at 8 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden they get a call. We moved her to April. Is everybody with me? A buddy of mine beat the system. You probably hear some of his commercials. Dr. Christie, Bill Christie, he built his own surgical center up in Cranberry. But the point comes back to that's what happened. All this was set up, and they knew if they bought the doctors that they would be able to handle anything that came up. And trust me, I mean, I'll hear like a patient will say, oh, poor Dr. So-and-so, they didn't renew his contract or they threw him out. And that usually gets my dander up enough to say, hey, you know how many $1 million he got from them? He sold out. They were offering millions of dollars to get these doctors to come in. And what did they do? They lost millions of dollars. Because once you buy the doc, he's not going to work like I work. Does everybody follow me? So the whole system changed. But it changed. So now we have A, B, C, and D accountants that are controlling the matrix of all patients. And now that you have the MDs, the DOs, and the extenders owned, you designed the criteria. And what happened when they complained? The hospitalist organization said, nope, we're not going to do this. 2018. Why? It's devastating, guys. You're here, you don't have to worry about it. But if you go to the hospital, get your hip done from a fall, usually if you get it done planned, you're okay. But let's say you have a fall, it gets infected. So now you have to go out. Well, if you go to get the infection diagnosed, they're not going to admit you. So what happens? Your observation. Do you get skilled days if your observation? What's it cost for a hip? 20 grand. Is everybody with me? So even these hospitalists who are owned by the system felt bad for, like, come on, these are seniors that aren't working. They're on fixed incomes. And you're gonna go by a 2 midnight criteria and tell them that they didn't qualify and therefore they got to pay out of pocket at the nursing home? Really? And the answer, guys, is yes. And it's a big number. Like, it's way up there. It's in the millions of people every year this is happening to. So what occurred? Because of the hospitalist revolt, how do you think the network handled, we'll say, the hospitalist regarding the plight of the senior? I shouldn't laugh. They gave the doctor more money. Is everybody with me? Who in this room knows what an ACO is? If your physician is owned, he or she's in an ACO. It's called an accountable care organization. It's risk sharing with Medicare. Let me go back to Dr. Potter and Dr. Nicotero. They didn't belong to Medicare. And you know what both of them told me 6 years apart? I don't trust the government. And that's why the two of them. So what would happen, they got cash. So when I bought their practices, the patient would pay cash. We would give them a receipt, and in 72 hours, they got their money back. You know how long it takes me to get a claim back if it goes through? 3 weeks. That's the standard, okay? Because I'm independent. If you're owned, You don't even pay attention to it. You have your own scale that you get reimbursed. Okay, does everybody follow what I'm telling you? Have the systems changed? Okay. So, did you know that since January of 2021, ACOs have been running Medicare? Okay? So, what does that mean? Remember my patient I told you about that went in, fractured, and was made an observation and didn't have an MRI, by the way, only a CAT scan? And we were always taught unwitnessed falls, head injury, you need an MRI of the brain. Why wasn't it done? You know what the ACO criteria is? If you don't spend the money, doctor, at the end of the year, you get a bonus. I was offered to get into that at one of the hospitals that we go to, and my partner was upset with me because $46 or 46 doctors split $9 million. And he's upset because if I'd have joined, would have got a piece of that. And what I tried to share with him is independence is priceless. I can still do what I want to do. Once you sign, then you have to follow their rules. Does everybody follow what I'm telling you? So the ACO now is the organization that manages and monitors everything that goes on everywhere in the world. It's not just America, guys. And they do that through computerization. Remember I told you I was in on the DRGs, the diagnostic related guidelines. Remember my pneumonia case. That'll help you there. Length of stay to get you out. And the big one, ICD code. International cause of death. Started in the 1800s. It's been modified many times. The last time was in 1994. America did not join to the ACA Act, Obamacare, and we went in. And it changed everything, guys. It's a computer system. What does that mean? Your hand, the ICD-9 code, your hand may have had 12 to 15 codes. Now, 46. Why? Because with 46, they can draw your hand. You follow me? That's how accurate it is. Everybody in this room has a matrix, and all the information about you is computerly generated into this matrix that they have all the data on. And what I've told you guys before, ask your doctor to see it, but don't be shocked at the last part of it because they put prognosis. And remember, this is all computer driven, guys. It's not your doctor saying this, it's the computer. And so what will happen is my patients will be devastated when they hear, they said I only have 12 months to live. No, that's the computer spitting out all the data that warns or throws out the red flag that the prognosis here, things have to change, or in 12 months you could be in trouble. Does everybody understand the concept? All right, guys, I wanted to make sure you had this to understand. I've been doing it since the 90s, and I haven't laughed. Oh, I shouldn't laugh. It drives me crazy. My son said to me, he goes, he's down in Virginia. He's doing his medicine residency. He's going to be a chief resident next year. He said, yeah, Dad, I think I got to come home for a while. I said, why is that? He said, well, I read that they're going to do, what's the terminology? Oh, there's a word for it. Like, they're going to check doctors when they turn 70s to see if they should still be practicing. There's like, not a competency. I forget the word they used. And I go, so what does that mean? He said, well, Dad, you're getting close to that. So I figured I'll come hang out and make sure you pass before I leave. So at least I have somebody to back me up now. My son's going to come protect me. But in this scope, guys, I've seen a lot. And what I see now is that the money is the key to everything. So for you, you need to educate yourself. And I hope today I taught you something about the observation. And remember again, you want to know the criteria they used? And remember, quality, interqual. What tests were done? What were the results of the test? May I have a second opinion? And when they say no, please call the number on the back of your insurance card. And 95% of you will be admitted. Please do this, guys, because you're going to get beat up. And don't you dare go to a neighborhood hospital. Not if you have a problem. Urgent care, they're fine for urgent cares. You cut yourself, you need stitches, or you're coughing and you want to get a chest x-ray. That's all wonderful. But if you have a serious illness, if you have chest pain, or you think you're having a stroke, or you think you might have some problem with your gallbladder or your appendix or something, you get to a hospital that's a regular hospital emergency room. Do not go to these neighborhood hospitals, guys. I'm telling you, they're not the place you want to be. But please remember this. Pay attention. We have a lot of stuff coming up. Karen and I were talking about it last week. Some of the stuff I'm going to tell you, I'll give you a snapshot of one of them. Is it ethical to replace doctors, nurses, and physicians' assistants with robots? And I was shocked when I even saw the article. And then, long story short, we were away, one of the weddings that I was taking my daughter to the airport. The guy was driving her from the hotel, and he invited me to go. And I told him that. He goes, it's nothing, Doc. He said, yeah, I see the hotel business. And I go, what do you mean? He said, just last week I was at a 7-Eleven, and he said, all of a sudden you hear a crash. And the speaker says, spilling out too. And a robot came out, cleaned it, and went back in the cupboard. Homeo, my nurse practitioner, talk to her, guys. They're called humanoids. We can't tell them apart. They function. That's what they claim is, well, I don't want to give it all away. Sorry for being late. Any questions to what we talked about, I'll answer, guys. Anybody have any questions? Yes?
I want to tell you what happened to me when I broke my arm this summer. I went to AGH emergency. They wouldn't touch me until I was signed to be an outpatient.
Really?
Really.
You had to sign.
I had to sign.
Oh, I didn't. That's news, guys. I didn't know they were doing that. So now they're actually then making you sign. That's ridiculous. So did you get stuck with co-pays and deductibles?
No, I didn't because I had made a fuss.
Oh, good.
They made me put in the hospital because I needed an operation.
Good.
So then I had to midnight since there. Then I didn't have the operation. They sent me this comment and I had to have it as an outpatient.
Oh, but you were in 2 midnights inpatient, so you didn't get stuck. Good. Did you have to threaten them? Did you threaten them?
Yeah, in the end, it was okay. I paid more for the ambulance than I did for
But seriously, guys, we didn't plan this. If you say certain things, they'll know you know. And if they know you know, they don't want any problems. So remember, you are entitled to a second opinion. And you want to know. It's not being rude. You want to know, what criteria did you use to say that I'm observation and not an inpatient? And they have to tell you. It's called, the interqual is the one most people use around here. And then you say, okay, may I have the results of my test, please? And then once they come to give you all that, say, okay, may I have a second opinion? And when they say, we're too busy, because that's what they're going to say to you, then you tell them to call everybody has it on the back of your card. You have a Medicare representative. And I can tell you guys, they're super nice. They give it to you 95% of the time. And that's what they'll know. So that's when they'll know, I give up, she knows too much. And I'm telling you guys, that's how it works. So please, please go in there knowing this, and don't be afraid. These are all just people, guys. These are just people. Just go in there and be knowledgeable of this and speak to them politely. Don't be rude. And I think you'll get what you need. Good. Any other questions, guys? Yes?
I don't know if this has anything to do with what you're talking
Can
about.
you use this?
I can talk loud enough.
I can't hear you.
It's going to my cell phone. Use it, but it won't show up on video.
when I had my knee replacement, I went into ICU because my blood pressure dropped so low.
Okay.
And Dr. O'Donnell came in and he says, I want you to stay for the weekend. And I thought, and I looked at Dr. Mulholland, who did my knee, and I think my son was with me. And I said, well, my insurance only covers up until that Friday afternoon. And so Dr. Mulholland said, I think my son was there, and he said, I want you to stay with her overnight for 24 hours so I could go home. And I mean, what was he going to do on a weekend? They don't do anything on weekends.
So they observed you? You didn't get admitted?
Well, I already had the replacement.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
And so I went.
No, it is true, but it's not. Nowadays, for the money, they do a lot of services on the weekend. They operate on the weekend. I mean, it has to be needed. They're not going to just do what we call elective surgeries, but they do a lot on the weekends now because of the dollars and cents. They'll do stress tests. They'll bring people in to do angiograms. Even at our little hospitals, they're doing it. So I understand, though, what you're saying in terms of they make changes based upon what happens. That's the original observation. The original observation is just what you're talking about. Someone has a procedure, you're expecting them to go home, there's a complication, you observe them for 20. You know, that used to be called short stay. That all changed. And again, guys, it's all money, unfortunately.
Well, that's what I figured.
It is. It all is. Yes, sir.
What classification is Strictly Hospital?
What do you mean classification? Oh, no. Heritage Swickley, Heritage Beaver, Heritage Kennedy, all hospitals. Good question. It will say neighborhood hospital on the sign, or Google it. It'll say it on their website. They have to put what they are. So you don't, if you're sick, it's great if you're coughing, sneezing, think you have the flu, think you have pneumonia, think you broke your leg, fine. But if you're sick, no. You go to an emergency room, and the closest one to you, if you're really sick, you're having chest pain, doesn't matter what your insurance is, they'll cover it for the first 12 hours and then transfer you to wherever your insurance allows you to go. But get to a hospital, guys, not a neighborhood emergency room. You have to get to a hospital. Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Wait a minute, Rose. Wait a minute. Hang on, Rose. Yeah, there you go.
Since they took doctors and made them be a conglomerate, did they do that with hospitals too?
Yes. 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 It's again, guys, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen it all change. And my frustration is with my son. My son is third-year resident in medicine, Richmond, Virginia at VCU, and he's being taught outcome-based medicine. I was taught differential diagnostic medicine. What's the difference? Outcome-based has what's called UNDR, unnecessary death rates. We didn't have that when I practiced. Follow me? It's okay if someone comes in with chest pain to send them home because statistically, 96% of them are okay. What about the 4%? In my day, it was called a chest pain center, and you kept them in the chest pain center for 72 hours, and you got all the testing done you needed to do, and we brought heart disease way down. You know, but it's so many factors, guys. We've talked about foods we eat, fructose corn syrup, genetically modified foods, all that stuff in place. But don't forget, stress is the biggest factor, guys. So remember, laughter is the best medicine, so make sure you laugh. Good. Any other questions? Good. Sorry Jim made me late today.